Hello and welcome to the Southeast Texas weather briefing for October 23rd, 2015. We're looking at a major flash flood event that's expected to develop Saturday night through Monday across Southeast Texas. Where do we stand? We've already got elevated seas, very strong rip currents along the coast, high surf. We've got run-up that's been flooding the beaches and causing overwash on some of the roads, such as 87 on Bolivar Peninsula. Earlier in the day on Saturday, we had some very intense rainfall that moves through parts of Colorado County, and we're going to be seeing more of that as the day progresses on Saturday going into Sunday, particularly that window between 6 p.m. Saturday and 3 p.m. Sunday. We'll see coverage expand as it spreads into the area from the west and from the Gulf, and we'll see a coastal low that should develop around the coastal bend and then move towards Southeast Texas. That's going to interact with moisture from Patricia. We'll be looking at significant rainfall and flooding as that low moves through the area. It's a little hard to tell exactly the track of that low at this point, but certainly the coastal areas and perhaps the I-10 corridor southward may be heavily impacted. Areas to the north of there, still widespread rain, but not quite the magnitude of what we're expecting closer towards the coast. The rivers are going to have rises from all of this heavy rain and intense rain, and we'll see rises on the rivers. Those may not be big significant rises until perhaps late in the day on Sunday or Monday. And then with the elevated tides along the coast, we'll see some of those lower ends of the main stem rivers backing up because the water will have a hard time getting back out into the Gulf of Mexico. Some information about where we were this afternoon and early this evening. Image here in the upper right-hand corner was along Galveston Beach, and we can see that there was a lot of wave action. There's some strong evidence of rip currents in there, and most noticeably some flooding of the beaches. Lifeguards are saying just don't go in the water, or if you do, certainly only go in up to your knees due to the strong rip currents. This is water vapor in the lower left corner of the image, and it shows this plume of moisture associated with Hurricane Patricia, which was breaking records in the Pacific Ocean for being the strongest hurricane ever, with winds in excess of 200 miles an hour and a barometric pressure of 880 millibars. Not quite the all-time record low pressure, but close enough. That big slug of moisture that's present with Patricia is expected to move across Mexico and eventually into South Texas and then into Southeast Texas, bringing us our heavy rain threat. In the lower right is just a image of expected rainfall to occur over a 48-hour time span, and I'm not trying to put any real detail in there other than that we've got an area of low pressure that'll move along the coast, focus those heavy rains primarily along the coast and then up along a frontal boundary, but in Southeast Texas the majority of the heavy rain is likely to be in the southern part of the area. So as it stands now, we have a coastal flood advisory in effect, and that may become a coastal flood warning. And the reason for that is we're expecting tides to rise to 4 to 5 feet above normal mean low water. That's the barnacle line, where the water normally only recedes to when the tide drops to its lowest normal values. The coastal flooding is likely to develop on Saturday afternoon, and then because we're having a very small tidal change from high to low tide, once that flooding really starts to occur, it's not likely to really end until late Sunday. Areas that are going to be impacted at early in the day on Saturday and Saturday afternoon with high tides. Saturday morning, Lynchburg, Manchester, we're looking at a high tide around 7:45 to 8 in the morning, and then on both days, and then again in the afternoon, the other high tide, typically 7:45 to 8:50 p.m. And as you move down the coast, you'll see the time march along. Saturday morning on Galveston entrance and around Bolivar, 1:40 in the morning, and then again 2:20 in the afternoon on Saturday, and then Sunday a little bit later, 2:07 a.m. and 3:34 p.m. And you can see the other times as you go down the coast. Areas that we're really expecting to see impacts along will be Highway 87 and 124 on Bolivar Peninsula. That road may be completely flooded and impassable. The Blue Water Highway in Brazoria, Matagorda County, that also is likely to have significant impacts on it as the wave run up and surge move into the area. Beach Drive in Surfside, Lynchburg Ferry Landing could be impacted, parts of Toddville Road, and in Seabrook. Other areas along the immediate coast can expect to see with tide levels of 4 to 5 feet impacts in those real commonly flood-prone areas. Dangerous flash flooding is very likely to occur. At this point, we're expecting widespread 3 to 6 inch amounts for areas generally north of the I-10 corridor. Along and south of that I-10 corridor, much heavier rainfall is expected. We're looking at some localized areas of 9 to 12 inches, maybe even as much as 15 inches. We have a flash flood watch in effect, and there is even a small threat for isolated tornadoes to occur Saturday night through about noon on Sunday as that surface low moves along the Texas coast, the upper Texas coast. There's also a gale watch in effect, so for marine interests out there, gale force winds Saturday evening around Matagorda Bay, and then on Sunday starting certainly by midnight and continuing through perhaps 9 a.m. to noon on Sunday for the Galveston Bay area. Those winds can certainly intrude into the coastal counties, so we could easily see 30-mile-an-hour winds all along the Texas coast overnight, Saturday night and Sunday. Those winds are what are going to be driving that coastal flooding situation, and it's likely we'll see a coastal flood warning with that expectation of at least 4 feet and maybe as high as 5 or 6 feet for the MEMO low water readings. This is a graphic highlighting the areas of rainfall. Areas around College Station, perhaps only as much as 3 to 6 inches of rainfall all the way down perhaps to Conroe, but certainly this big swath across the coastal areas from Chambers County all the way down to Jackson County, especially through the Houston metro area, we could see 8 to 12 inch amounts and maybe even some isolated amounts near 15 inches possible. And really importantly is that the rainfall rates, as that system, as Patricia moves into the area and combines with all that Gulf moisture, rainfall rates of 3 to 4 inches per hour are really going to be likely. And 3 to 4 inches an hour will far surpass the capability of the roads to handle that kind of rainfall rate. And this could happen for more than an hour or intermittently over a period of time. Once that flooding gets started on the streets, it's going to become very dangerous to travel and should probably be avoided Saturday night and Sunday. Taking a look at tides, this is to give an idea. The blue line in here shows the normal astronomical tide level. The red and black line above it shows expectations for what the tide levels may be on Saturday night and Sunday, reaching 4 to 5 feet, possibly even 6 feet as those high tides occur. And you can also see in there the very small tidal diurnal range that we're having with little relief. So once it starts to flood, it's much more likely that it's going to stay there and have very little chance of receding. Anything over about 3.7 feet starts causing flooding problems along those flood-prone areas like 87 and then down the coast towards Freeport and Surfside. When those readings get up above 4 feet, then that's where you start to see the impacts there along the Blue Water Highway. Timing. Saturday afternoon, we're expecting the leading surge of moisture from Patricia to be moving through South Texas, and very heavy rains developing over South Texas. Saturday night, that coastal low forms and then tracks either along the coast, maybe just inland, or just slightly offshore, in which case focusing heavy rains across southeast Texas Saturday night and Sunday. Those will be the real time when southeast Texas is going to be under the gun. Then eventually on Monday it starts to shift out, and the computer models are showing a trend of maybe a little bit faster departure Sunday night on Monday, so perhaps we could dry out, especially over the really hard-hit areas from the rainfall along the coast. Areas to the north may still have some wraparound moisture that lingers that could go into Monday. But the big impact window is going to be Saturday night and Sunday for the most intense rainfall and most likely the worst of the flooding. Well, we thank you for joining us, and we may, if time permits, tomorrow, if the weather doesn't get too crazy, be updating again this during the afternoon hours. Thanks again for listening.